Actually, camera.
So it's supposed to work. We took what is this thing?
Okay,
The
BNC.
BNC. So yeah, camera wants cable. So it's supposed to work. Can you see us now? Okay. You right?
How does I put a meaning what?
Oh, I.
But is it working?
No, he just said sharp. I don't know whether he's
Oh.
confirming or not.
If it's not working, maybe the camera.
If it's not working, then it might be the camera.
Yeah.
Then we've got another camera.
Yeah, I don't think we think.
There's a zoom.
Come on. You must tell us a week in advance.
My phone might be on the there, but I don't think so. Maybe Harai route.
No, I'm moving.
Okay, my phone too. Also route you. I've been a me.
Oh. Okay. Since last week.
But it's supposed to work now because we took out the camera one cable. It's supposed to work now because we connected.
Like it is suited. Yeah, I'm gonna be seven.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Because we're testing if it's.
Is it rooted there?
1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah.
1, 2. One, two, one, two, one, two. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 1 2 1 2 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 6 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 testing 1 2 testing 1 2 testing 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 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 testing 1 2
No, not yet. No, no, no. You've got access to
I can see. Yeah. When I saw this, I thought, yo, when
Okay, can you speak to the guy because I'm not aware what's
Yeah? Testing mic for phone, testing mic, testing 2, testing 3, testing 4, testing 5, testing 6. You run your own. Copy. You run your own, Yeah. Marinas moving. Yeah?
What's going to happen? Very sharp sound.
Yeah.
Very pain.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got an audio speaker for anyone who needs sound. Okay, just need to run it here. Those plugs fly us. What is it? Okay, nice one. Okay, let me find out. Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
We're not going to do Yeah, I don't know, but I don't even know. Normally the birds I saw that with the kids are
we are going to the government part.
But you can say that you're going to film my shots. Sir, you cannot be there.
Hey, man, say, come here and hang.
Hey, you
If I you not hang.
and you didn't mind.
Yes. But
If you're going to be there, you can have it.
oh,
You want about
yeah, it's so clear.
it. Nobody. Good morning.
No, it's fine. I'm gonna be here. Even here. I'm gonna be here. No, yeah, but it's not. No,
Then you can have the phone.
no, but I'm gonna be on yourself.
I'm
good, how are you?
That is why he said he's got 3 cameras.
What don't I do? What?
A fee.
A fee? They're gonna put their mics, no?
Oh, no.
It's for media.
Sure.
To suffice.
Oh. Okay.
And I don't know how he's gonna read. He's gonna read like this, or yeah, if you can put it somewhere.
No, I don't need
You can put it there, in between.
I need the light. I'm gonna be here.
I have to go.
Because the sound you get kula ma wall box ai spine ya pet.
Yeah, paid.
Yeah, I will.
If I'm a check up because I'm not sure what I'm going to package is going to give. Come on. Because maybe they might need to put a limit on someone said that because they're like manager from Victoria. So if you could, if you can I give you stuff? You don't have. I just want the second one. And then you have to take it from Japan. Then you have to take it from No, I think some would like that.
Yeah. You want to take it from what? When not? Yeah, you don't speak. Oh, when I go. And I just speak. No.
Yeah, no, I don't know. What's under the bridge after today?
So you are just speaking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, we are going to do a manifest. Yeah.
Yes, who was asking.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Let me phone the original heads quickly. Hello, buddy.
How are you?
I'm still alive. I'm still alive. You can see. Hectic.
Did I see you this year?
Oh, we met in Makassar the last time.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
talked this year.
Oh, we talked, yeah.
This year I talked.
I think it was last year. Yeah, but it was last year.
Now we are here.
Oh, I wanted to just allow the because I told Sandra in terms of the packaging was already upset and they put me at calories. They have set up everything. They have set up the person is going to be taking for them is already set up. The person is taking from front day they set up. So we just said I should help with that. And I tried to ask one of the guys. Okay, is that it? So it's your when you're done, tell us about it.
The statement is in my last page.
I don't remember where it is.
No, I told you that I will attend to you.
In the video, just not our because I think this is the one thing. Yes? Evan, I think that I went to always again, please.
Microphone check, microphone check. This is how we speak in the microphone check, microphone check, microphone check. Are you happy with my audio? Or do you want me to take off my mask? Are you happy with the audio? Or do you want me to take off my mask? Tell me if you're happy. You're sending tone. So now I can be able to speak to you. And you're gonna be able to have clean audio. Thank you, microphone, Mango.
Thank you.
Are you happy? So you're happy?
Yeah.
Is it clean? Tell me if you're happy. I'm saying you clean audio. Tell me if you're happy with that audio. Do you want me to say more or you guys are happy with audio? Do you want me to test the podium mic, not the podium, the desk mics, or this one is happy? Are you happy with the audio? Are you happy with the audio? I can go home now.
You can go home now.
Ya nih semua dikir, udah rasa nih udah keren, udah keren. Mana ucul tuh ya, baru oke. Ini kan begitu punya. Nah, you go on last time, so break up it was late.
No, he won't go up.
Oh,
Is there space? This is here.
So I might be
You will be up
something.
What's that? Up there.
Yes, sir.
When you are here. You are here, I think, according to boss, is you. That one will be up there. Here it will be you. It will be the boss. I think the boss, yeah, maybe the boss will sit here. It's Leonard. You want to read this teacher? I'm not sure. Let me ask. Because it might be problematic. Because they've already put the speakers on the thing on the podium. They've already put the things on the podium. The microphone, yeah. All this thing is interviews from provincial business. If we like to talk to all of them, here we've talked to Segregation, assist, and so on. Then if you can just...
I need
And there's no space even here.
I'm going to have to read.
Yeah, I do. And it's just not...
No.
What must we do?
So they can put those things here.
Check, especially SABC. Let's find somebody. This page off is getting too small here. Is it possible? Where are the others? Is it possible to have this thing here so that it doesn't sit?
Meaning that they're going
Long
to
statement.
speak. It's a long statement.
Is it possible?
Is it possible? If it's not, then I'll have to... You see, the thing is, there's no space here.
There's no space here, that's the problem.
There's no space here.
The problem is the mics. I feel this space for him to put a document.
You see, I need to put it here.
And it's a 30 pages.
Yes. Is that my turn then? Okay. And then, when you're addressing,
There's your main camera there. That's gentleman with the green.
That one.
Yes, that gentleman with the green.
Okay.
Hello?
We are asking a question. Yeah, brother.
Who am I speaking to?
Can we hear it from there?
Of course, yeah.
Then you move the mics to him.
Oh, I don't know about the other media house, but we have those mics connected to. I don't know about you guys. Can they read from there? Because I'm giving you guys a feed, right? So yeah, they can use those mics.
Oh, I can?
Yeah, you can.
That is fine.
Lovely.
Okay.
Lovely.
So which one will it be? The center? Can it be the center?
The center?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that indulgence.
And then when you answer, we can come.
Yeah.
That means moving my other mask and put it in the other mask.
That's why is it
Which one? It was done by the people of KZN. Yes. Are we going to start? Okay. Producer, about me.
Time myself, eh?
Yeah. The mics are here, but we're going to do the statement from there.
Okay, so okay.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Sturm.
Yes, sir.
Good.
You left us.
Ish. Who's going to go ahead for us to start? That's what I'm saying. Who's giving me that go ahead so that we start?
Have they released it?
The statement? Yes, but we said to him immediately we start the press the button.
4, 3.
Good afternoon or good morning. Still morning, yes, still morning. Good morning, members of the media, and good morning to all the viewers at home. Today we are here as the Special Investigating Unit. I emphasize investigating because everybody just say investigation when it is investigating unit. We are here to give a report on the cases that have been finalized in relation to the PPEs, and we are going to be given that by the head of the SIU, Advocate Ndimu TB. But before we do that, let me introduce to you the panel that you see in front. Next to me here we've got Mr. Leonard Lekheto, who is the head of investigations. And next to him we have got the advocate, is Advocate Ndimu TB. And next to him we have got Zodwa Tishibe from the Eastern Cape province. And on the last seat there we have got Mr. Gosai Ashish from the KwaZulu-Natal. And in the among us here in the auditorium we also have the head of legal, Mr. Dr. Jerome Wells. We also have the head of Gauteng, which is Segregation. And then we have the investigator in Gauteng, who is Lorenda. Therefore, those are the people that might engage with you if the necessity comes up. Without wasting more time, I would like to take this opportunity and give it to Advocate Mutibi to take us through the statement. He will be doing it from where he's seated. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Mr. Khanyaho. Good morning, members of the media. We also send our greetings to the public of South Africa. Good morning to my colleagues at the Special Investigating Unit, particularly those who are with us at this venue. It gives us a pleasure to report and release the report that we have submitted to the President as at the 25th of November of 2020. As you gather from the statement in terms of the legislative mandate of the Special Investigating Unit, when we do our investigations, we submit either progress reports or interim reports or the final report to the President. And the President has deemed it appropriate that this report be released to the public, and has authorized the Special Investigating Unit to do so. Now, just to commence, the South African government declared a national state of disaster in March 2020, having recognized that the special circumstances existed to warrant the declaration of a national state of disaster in terms of the Disaster Management Act of 2002. The decision was informed by consideration of the magnitude and severity of the COVID-19 outbreak, which had been declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization and classified as a natural disaster by the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs as envisaged in Section 3 of the Disaster Management Act. The emergency procurement measures were subsequently implemented by the National Treasury. Following the implementation of the emergency procurement by various state institutions at all levels of government and in all provinces, a number of procurement irregularities and corruption allegations were reported to the Special Investigating Unit by whistleblowers. Now, in the case of Gauteng Provincial Government, the Office of the Gauteng Premier, through the Director General of the province, had approached the Special Investigating Unit to assist with the investigation of certain allegations of irregularities in respect of the procurement of goods and services, including for PPE by Gauteng Provincial Department of Health for its own use and also for use by other Gauteng provincial departments. Then the SIU entered into secondment agreement with the Office of the Gauteng Premier in order to second the multidisciplinary investigation team to the Office of the Gauteng Premier to assist with the investigation pending the proclamation process. The allegations reported to the SIU involved, amongst others, the irregular procurement of personal protection equipment, hospital and quarantine sites, catering services, including food parcels, ventilators, disinfecting equipment, and motorized wheelchairs. The SIU then used these allegations that were reported to prepare and process a proclamation. On the 23rd of July 2020, and with the publication of Proclamation 23 of 2020, President Cyril Ramaphosa referred certain allegations of impropriety in connection with the affairs of all state institutions to the SIU and provided the SIU with its terms of reference, which are fully set out in the schedule to the proclamation. The investigation spans primarily the period 1 January 2020 and 23 July 2020. But it also authorizes investigations into matters which took place prior to the 1st of January 2020 or after the 23rd of July 2020. But those should then be relevant to, connected with, incidental or ancillary to the matters mentioned in the schedule to the proclamation, or involve the same persons, entities, or contracts investigated under the authority of the proclamation. The proclamation further specifically tasked and authorized the SIU to exercise or perform all the functions and powers assigned to or conferred upon it by the Special Investigating Units and Special Tribunals Act 74 of 1996, including the recovery of any losses suffered by state institutions or the state in relation to the said matters in schedule to the proclamation. As envisaged in the reporting requirements provided for by the SIU Act, President Ramaphosa directed that the SIU submit to him progress reports every 6 weeks to the inception of the investigation. The SIU has complied with the stated reporting requirements. The SIU has to date made significant progress in these investigations, and today, as I indicated, we released the report of finalized investigations and outcomes of these investigations to the public of South Africa. Now, just dealing with the legislative mandate relevant here, the SIU is mandated by the Special Investigating Units and Special Tribunals Act 74 of 1996 to investigate serious maladministration or malpractices in connection with state institutions at all levels of government, also state assets and all state institutions, provincial and local spheres of government, and also conduct any investigations on any matter that may seriously harm the interest of the public, including corruption. The SIU is further mandated to institute and conduct civil proceedings in any court of law or a special tribunal in its own name or on behalf of the state institutions. You'll see later on when we deal with matters in the special tribunal. Now, in terms of this legislation, the referral of matters by the President to the SIU for investigation occurs in the following circumstances when any of these grounds are alleged. Number one, when there's allegations of serious maladministration in conjunction with the affairs of the state institutions, improper or unlawful conduct by employees of the state institution, unlawful appropriation or expenditure of public money or property, unlawful, irregular, or unapproved acquisitive act, transaction, measure, or practice having a bearing upon state property, intentional or negligent loss of public money or damage to the public property. When there's alleged offense referred to in the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act of 2004, committed in connection with the affairs of any state institution. Unlawful or improper conduct by any person which has caused or may cause serious harm to the interest of the public or any category thereof. The proclamation sets out the terms of reference, and the President may at any time amend a proclamation issued. The proclamation is amended or changed at any time when there are allegations that falls outside of the scope of the proclamation, and the public referred those allegations to SIU, and then the SIU would then process that amendment to the President. Now, once the President has referred these matters to SIU, SIU is required within the framework of the terms of reference set out in the proclamation to do the following: investigate all allegations regarding the matter concerned, collect evidence regarding acts or omissions which are relevant to the investigations, to institute or conduct civil proceedings in the special tribunal or any court of law, to seek any relief which the state institution concerned is entitled to, including the recovery of any damages or losses which may be suffered by such state institution, any relief relevant to any investigation, or any relief relevant to the interest of the Special Investigating Unit. To refer evidence regarding or which points to the commission of an offense to the relevant prosecuting authority. to perform any functions which are not in conflict with the provisions of the SIU Act, as the President may from time to time request. From time to time, as requested by the President, to report on the progress made in the investigation and matters brought before the special tribunal concerned or any court of law. And upon the conclusion of the investigation, to submit the final report to the President. And the SIU is also at least twice a year to submit a report to Parliament on the investigations by and the activities, composition, and expenditure of the SIU. Now, once these allegations are received, the SIU subjects these allegations to what internally we call the SIU value chain. In brief, it's really the process that it follows. The allegations are assessed. We satisfy ourselves that they fall within the proclamation and within the legislative mandate. We then process the proclamation, and ultimately, once the proclamation is signed, the investigation commences, and during the investigation, we reach certain outcomes, and ultimately the report is submitted to the President. And what we have now implemented is follow-ups on these referrals that we have made. Now, in that process, the outcomes that the SIU seeks to achieve in its investigations is to investigate allocations pertaining to the procurement of goods and services, to institute civil proceedings in the special tribunal for the recovery of losses and or the prevention of further losses. As I indicated, to refer evidence in respect of criminal, administrative, executive, or disciplinary action, and then make systemic recommendations for improvement of the control environment or the planning environment of state institutions. And then to compile and submit progress reports and final reports to the President in respect of the investigations conducted. Now, the key outcomes that we seek to achieve, as I indicated, firstly is that when the investigation proceeds, if we find that there's irregularities relating to any procurement process, we then approach the special tribunal or the High Court. But since the inception of the special tribunal, which was signed off by the President in 2019, we have since been now processing our civil litigation matters through the special tribunal. And later on, we pronounce ourselves that this has been the best mechanism and the tool that the President has afforded the civil litigation environment so that we can speed up the process. Now, the other outcomes is the disciplinary actions and referrals to state institutions where the state institutions are required to take disciplinary action. And others are administrative referrals or executive referrals where you're dealing with executive authorities. The other referrals is referrals for prosecution, and then we've got other referrals to regulatory authorities. Now, with regard to the PPE investigation, a total of 189 procurement corruption allegations were reported to the Special Investigating Unit. That is as at the 25th of November 1920. A breakdown of those is nationally we had 51 allegations. In Gauteng we received 34, in KZN 26, in Eastern Cape 17, in Mpumalanga 16, in Northwest we had 12, in Limpopo we had 12, Free State 11, Western Cape 9, and Northern Cape we had 1. You'll see later on we unpack these allegations. These being allegations, once we have assessed these allegations, then we determine the contracts to which these allegations relate to. And I'll come to that point later on. We just wanted to indicate to the public and to the media that as we commenced with the investigation, we then interacted with the National Treasury to determine the expenditure and contracts that would really be under investigation. With regard to the expenditure, the data that we received from National Treasury indicated that a total of 30.7 billion was spent by state institutions between April and November of 2020. Now, of that 30.7 billion, 13.3 billion is subject to the SIU investigation. As at the date of the release of these progress reports and the outcomes, a total of 2,556 PPE contracts were awarded to the state institutions, and the value of those contracts awarded amounted to 13.3 billion. And that is the one that is a subject of investigation. These contracts were awarded. Now, once we assess that the allegations relate to a certain number of contracts, we then dive deep and check which service providers are affected. So these contracts related to a number of 1,774 service providers. Now, as we speak, as we report today, investigations into about 164 contracts, and that translates to 26% of the contracts that I've mentioned, to the value of 3.5 billion have been finalized. And a number of 1,541 contracts, and that one translates to 51% of the overall number of contracts, and the value of those is 6.8 billion. Those ones are currently being investigated as we report. And the teams continue to give feedback. The investigations have been ongoing. We continue to get feedback from the investigations on the status of those investigations. And 851 contracts, and that translating to 22% of contracts, are yet to commence. But as we report today, it's an ongoing process. Some may have commenced, but as at the 25th of November when we reported, 851 were still to commence. Now, it's important to note that more allegations continue to be received by the SIU relating to this PPE contracting environment. As such, a number of changes from progress report to progress reports are noted. Right, now as we continued with the investigations revealed to us certain observations that also informed our findings. The investigations revealed, amongst others, the following. It appeared that persons in positions of authority within some state institutions believed that the declaration of the national state of disaster meant that all procurement is automatically now conducted on an emergency basis and without compliance with any of the normal prescripts regulating public sector procurement. But they didn't realize that even an emergency procurement must still be conducted in accordance with certain minimum prescripts to ensure, in as far as possible, that such processes remain fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective as prescribed by Section 217(1) of the Constitution. Example, to motivate to the accounting authority or accounting officer of the state institution concerned, why would is it wholly or partially impractical to invite competitive bids, and have that accounting officer authority record the reasons of such impracticality and approve SCM deviations in terms of the National Treasury regulations. So as I indicate that the evidence revealed that there was an impression that every procurement should be done under emergency processes, which was not the case. Now, the evidence also pointed to us that various officials merely rubber-stamped decisions taken by the authorities, accepted and gave effect to unlawful instructions from officials more senior than them, which resulted in a complete breakdown of the checks and balances protection normally afforded by, amongst others, the principle of segregation of duties. This is a very important principle which requires that various officials perform various functions of the same process so that there is a mitigation of influence. But that mitigation point was also undermined. Consequently, officials working within support services processed commitment letters, purchase orders, invoices, payments without ensuring compliance with the normal SCM prescripts and other control measures. It further appeared that certain officials within state institutions, they actually do not trust the procurement process undertaken by the national government. Example, the procurement process undertaken by the National Treasury to secure transversal contracts. And they hold a view which in the SIU's perspective is false. They hold a view that such procurement processes and resulting contracts create monopolies in public sector procurement, which excludes fair opportunity for local, provincial, black empowerment, and small and medium enterprises, suppliers or service providers to compete fairly for such contracts. This is the perception that we have picked up as we investigated, but as we indicate that in our view, this is an unfounded perception on the part of those officials. The perception seemingly resulted in the state institutions, particularly at provincial government level, avoiding the use of transversal contracts as inter alia prescribed by the practice note number 8 of 2019 and 2020. They ignored the prescripts of practice note number 3 of 1920 and 21, which required from all the state institutions to centralize all their procurement within the National Treasury procurement team, which comprised of the National Department of Health, the Chief Procurement Officer in National Treasury, as assisted by Business South Africa on a non-profit basis, which resulted in the procurement irregularities and gave loss and prejudice to the provincial governments and to the fiscus. Now, some of the findings, if you bear in mind that the national state of disaster was declared on the 15th March 2020, whereafter the PPE procurement process commenced, we found that certain service providers were found to have only been registered on the CIPC during February and March 2020, and thus they would not or could not have demonstrable track records. Companies awarded contracts were not registered on the central supplier database. Certain service providers were already in the deregistration process when they quoted and were awarded the contracts. The type of goods supplied were not consistent with the nature of the business for which companies are registered on the CIPC, and they should not have been requested to quote for the services that were required. Product specifications were ignored, and products that were not suitable for its intended purpose were purchased, and several instances against the advice of expert opinion on the usefulness of the product. Certain companies were awarded triple BEE points as level 1 contributors when they in fact did not qualify. In some instances, we found that the evidence indicated that there was political pressure that played a role in the procurement of PPE. It also appeared that the names of the service providers were determined before the SCM process commenced. The delivery of substandard and PPE that does not comply with the technical specifications contained in the invitation to submit quotations. Furthermore, certain PPEs were not packaged according to predetermined standards, thus compromising those PPEs. We found that there was no attempt to negotiate with suppliers in bringing the prices within the thresholds provided by the National Treasury. This resulted in overpayments that we have found for the goods that were supplied. The departments we found lack basic control measures that will establish correct product delivery. In several instances, we found under delivery of items. So the control measures of ensuring that what you have ordered is delivered those measures were found wanting and not to be inexistent. There appears to be no verification protocols or supplier registration on supplier registration details. This has resulted in several suppliers claiming VAT when they were not registered with SARS as VAT vendors. We also found that suppliers used front companies to obtain multiple contracts from a department. In some instances, we found that some companies effectively were used as proxies for other companies. We found that there was cover coating by officials and suppliers. There were also instances of splitting of bids to meet the quotation and or delegation threshold. We also found that in other instances there were misrepresentation from suppliers by not disclosing their close friendships with officials who were involved in awarding PPE contracts. The PPE were packaged under false, forged or cloned labels, thereby creating a risk that the correct product would not be delivered. So these are, amongst others, the observations that we have generally picked up. The details of the observations are in the report, which I am informed that as we commenced this briefing, the full report with this media statement that I'm reading from has been released to the media. Right, following these observations that we have made, of course, the investigation then made several findings. We found that the procurement processes were irregular, and now I will deal with instances where the findings indicated that the contracts procured and the procurement process were irregular, and we then approached the special tribunal. As I indicated when I started, we approached the special tribunal to seek to declare those contracts invalid and set them aside. In some instances, we approached the special the special tribunal to freeze the assets of those who are implicated. In recent times, we determined that when state officials realize that they may be implicated, they are quick to resign and leave the state institutions. We therefore approached the special tribunal to then freeze the pensions pending the civil litigation. So I'm going to now go into those instances where the contracts have been found to be irregular. You will also pick up that there are instances where we have approached the court to freeze pensions, but I'll start off now with the civil litigations that we instituted in the special tribunal. As at the 20th of November 2020, the SIU had instituted civil matters in the special tribunal to the value of 259,624,735 rands for review, which will include recovery of state funds. The value and details of the matters before the special tribunal are the following. In the Eastern Cape, it relating to the Department of Health, there was a matter that we enrolled in the special tribunal, which is the Department of Health of Eastern Cape versus FAPCOMP. The value of that contract is over 10 million. The date instituted is the 18th September of 2020. You may be aware of this matter. It has been in the public domain. The course of action is based on the irregular procurement by the Eastern Cape Department of Health of motorcycles with a sidecar to transport patients, which resulted in the process that was not fair, competitive, or cost-effective. The matter was heard in the special tribunal in the Eastern Cape, and the Eastern Cape Department was interdicted from making any payments to the supplier and from accepting delivery of any goods from the supplier based on the irregularity that the SIU has pointed out. pending the finalization of the review proceedings to challenge the validity of the award and resulting contract. The review proceedings have been instituted in the special tribunal, and the matter will be heard on the 22nd of April of 2021. You'll know that once we approach the special tribunal, we are then subject to the scheduling of the cases by the special tribunal. This matter has then been scheduled to be heard on that day. Again, in the Eastern Cape, in the OR Tambo municipality, the so-called door-to-door case, the value of this contract is over 4 million, 4.8. It was instituted on the 26th of October of 2020. This matter relates to an investigation into the irregular procurement of an awareness campaign that was conducted in the Eastern Cape. Civil proceedings have been instituted against the entity that was involved, called Palizu Trading, in the special tribunal to review and set aside the award of the resulting contract and to recover losses suffered by the municipality. The defendant has thus far not defended the matter, and the SIU is then in the process of enrolling and scheduling this matter for hearing in the special tribunal. As at the time of this report, we had not received the scheduled date from the special tribunal, but of course our legal team continues to follow on the scheduling. Still in the Eastern Cape, there's a matter relating to a company called the Itiquini Trading. The value is 2.7 million. It was instituted on the 30th of October of 2020. Now, this matter relates to the procurement of PPE for the Department of Education in the Eastern Cape. The SIU successfully applied to the special tribunal to have the bank accounts of the first 4 respondents frozen and to interdict the department from making any further payments to them. And remember, this is based on the irregularities that the SIU would have found. In this case, again, the SIU will issue summonses to recover the losses suffered by the department. Those are the matters that are in the Eastern Cape in the special tribunal. In Gauteng, following the investigations that we conducted, the SIU instituted civil proceedings against Ledla Structural Development. The value of the contract in that matter is valued at 139 million. Again, this matter has really made headlines. You may be aware of this matter. In this matter, a contract to deliver PPE was irregularly awarded by the Gauteng Department of Health, while the investigation found that prices were also artificially inflated between 211% and 542%. Notwithstanding the fact that the department was aware that the SIU was investigating the contract, and the department had stopped almost all payments in respect of the suppliers under investigation, on the 3rd of August of 2020, the department made payment of about 38.7 million to the supplier. Now, that did not reconcile with what we had indicated, that there's possibilities of irregularity. And we found that once that payment was made, there was an immediate clearance and substantial amounts were moved from the bank account of the supplier of the bank account of 2 other entities, who in turn transferred and paid the funds to at least 36 other entities. We noted the speed and the haste at which this was done. And of course, this to us indicated that we needed to move with speed. In that regard, we then approached the Financial Intelligence Center, and we really thank our colleagues at the Financial Intelligence Center that they assisted in this investigation. So on or about the 6th of August, at the request of SIU, the FIC implemented a directive to freeze the funds of these entities. So at that time, we freezed the account amounts of about 39 entities. In terms of the FIC legislative requirements. The freezing was for about 10 days, but we had to move swiftly to ensure that within that 10 days we institute civil proceedings in the special tribunal, and we did that. In the case number GP 7 of 2020, it was enrolled in the special tribunal. To date, and we would like to indicate the details of all these matters are in the full report. Will not go line by line in those details, but suffice to say, the respondents were prohibited by the special tribunal from dealing with the funds that were freezed, and the implementation of the contracts between the department and the respondents, it was suspended. These entities were also interdicted from dealing with the funds that were in the bank accounts. So, as I indicated, we also freezed the pension of the chief financial officer of the department, pending the outcome of damages claim to be instituted against the CFO. The department was also interdicted from making further payments. Right. The matter then proceeded in the special tribunal. Now, as of December, the special tribunal then said on the 10th of December the matter was heard. The special tribunal reviewed and set aside the 139 million contract. This contract was set aside, effectively meaning that it was invalid and it could not be executed anymore, which meant that the department would not execute on that contract anymore. The funds that would have been paid out were then saved for the department. The special tribunal in December extended also the interdict of the pension freeze, because that matter is still coming. As I indicated, in December, the special tribunal confirmed the interim orders that were granted against the respondents, and approximately 16.6 million was forfeited to the state in the December order. And the special tribunal discharged the interim orders that were applicable to other respondents and released their funds because there could not be any wrongdoing found on them, and the amount of 173 was then released. They could then deal with those funds from their banking accounts. The special tribunal then ordered SIU to obtain an independent audit report in respect of the remaining other respondents that were still on the case. The SIU did that, and the matter was heard by the special tribunal on the 4th of February, which is yesterday. The special tribunal declared more than 10 million held in the bank accounts of further 20 companies and entities to be forfeited to the state. This brings the total of the money forfeited to the state in this case to 26 million of the 39 million that was paid by the Gauteng Department of Health in this 139 contracts. I have instructed our legal team to execute with speed and urgently this order that was given by the special tribunal, and the execution of the order simply means that we need to convert that order into a recovery of money and pay those monies back to the state, and in this case, the Department of Health of Gauteng. There's another matter which emanates from the same set of facts. I indicated to you that we have freezed the pension of the former CFO, There's also that matter that is coming for a hearing. Without going into much details, which you can read in the report, the hearing for that matter is scheduled to be held on the 1st of June of 2021 to the 18th of June 2021. So in that matter, the SIU would also be presenting its case in terms of the recovery of damages. And in our argument, we will seek to demonstrate to the special tribunal the role that these officials played in the prejudice and the losses that the department suffered. So that matter is SIU versus Kabelo Mantsu Lithwenya and Professor Mkhululi Lukele and the MEC of Gauteng of Health. In this regard, the MEC has been cited because he's the executive authority. There is really no order that really sought against him on specifically on that matter. But we'll come to the other matter that you probably are aware of. It has also made headlines relating to the MEC challenging the findings of SIU. Now move on to matters that are in the special tribunal in the KwaZulu-Natal. In the Department of Social Development, the companies that are involved there is Rosette Investment, Gibela, LNA Communications, and Zain Brothers. The values range from 4.8 million, another 4.8 million, 3.9 million, and 4.8 million. The matter relates to the irregular procurement of blankets for the Department of Social Development in KZN. The investigation revealed that in fact, less blankets were distributed than the department had in its stores prior to embarking on the procurement process. Civil proceedings have been instituted against the supplier or the suppliers in the special tribunal to review and set aside the award and the resulting contract and to recover the losses suffered by the department. At a national level, we've got the National Department of Public Works, the SIU versus Caledon River Properties. This is the matter also that has been in the public domain. You'll be aware of. It's colloquially referred to as the Bait Bridge border post matter. This matter relates to the procurement process of service provider and contractor for the erection of a fence along the SA border with Zimbabwe near Bait Bridge. The SIU investigation, which was conducted under the secondment agreement with the department, found evidence that the procurement process was irregular. The contract has a value of about 40 million. The SIU has instituted the proceedings in the special tribunal for an order to freeze the bank accounts of the companies. Alternatively, that the companies provide bank guarantees of about 21.8 million and 1.8 million respectively. As we speak today, this matter was heard in the special tribunal on the 26th of January 2021. If you followed those proceedings, the companies are challenging the jurisdiction of the special tribunal, but I will not go into detail on that matter. The judgment has been reserved. Now, just to put the special tribunal matters into perspective, as I indicated, as at the 25th of November of 2020, the matters that were instituted in the special tribunal amounted to 259 million. Now, as of the 4th of February 2021, as of yesterday, we recorded 15 matters that have been enrolled in the special tribunal to the contract value of 365 million. We mention in this so that you can be aware that cases continue to be enrolled in the special tribunal, and you can see that the value of the contract also goes up, and that is an indication of the potential recovery that the SIU may still recover going forward. That part then concludes the matters that are in the special tribunal for adjudication, and our legal teams are hard at work to ensure that those matters are effectively dealt with, and that the contracts based on the irregularities that were found by the investigating teams, those contracts are set aside, declared invalid, and we recover the monies that are due to the state. Now I go on to deal with other outcomes coming out of the investigations. And those outcomes now refer to, during the investigations, the evidence does indicate the officials that are guilty or may be guilty of misconduct. And those are the officials who would have participated in the wrongdoing during the procurement processes. The SIU investigations revealed evidence that requires disciplinary action to be taken against certain officials involved in the irregularities. 25 referrals have been made to various state institutions for the institution of disciplinary action for misconduct and contravening of the supply chain management policies and sections of the Public Finance Management Act and the Municipal Finance Management Act. The officials are employed in the following state institutions. And as you will follow, that because of the legal risks that we didn't want to run, because it is the responsibility of the state institutions to institute these proceedings, and then the names of the officials would then be made public once these proceedings have been completed. Now, in the Free State Provincial Treasury, there's been one referral in respect of about 3 procurement processes against a senior manager. This referral was made on the 9th of November 2020. The SIU is currently assisting the Provincial Treasury with this matter to ensure that the disciplinary process is conducted. Our investigators would normally serve as witnesses in these hearings. In the Gauteng Department of Health, there has been one referral made against a middle manager on the 18th of November 2020. The SIU met with the evidence leaders appointed in the matter, evidence relating to the disciplinary process. The matter is set down to be heard on the 15th of March 2021. It's really pleasing to see that action is being taken against these officials. In the Gauteng Department of Health again, one referral was made against another senior manager on the 18th of September 2020. Again, the SIU met with evidence leaders appointed in the matter. The disciplinary hearing was scheduled to be held on the 11th of January 2021, but it was postponed following an application by the senior manager for further information. The new date for the disciplinary hearing is the 1st to the 5th of February 2021. Again, SIU is assisting in this matter, assisting in the sense that our investigators become witnesses to testify in these matters. And the SIU continue to follow up to ensure that there's consequence management. Again, in the Gauteng Department of Health, 2 referrals were made against other senior manager on the 23rd of September 2020 and 25th of September 2020. The official resigned from the department on or about the 3rd October 2020. There's one official who resigned. And these are instances which we have observed. And we are saying we have deemed it appropriate. That's just so that the officials do not think that once they have resigned, they've terminated the employer-employee relationship and they can get away with it. We then institute civil proceedings. Where there's evidence pointing to criminal actions on their part, they continue to be followed. Where there's civil proceedings, we cite them in the civil proceedings to recover damages from them. Again, in Gauteng, there's a further one referral that was made against the spokesperson of the President, on the 10th of November 2020, the SIU has been informed by the Office of the President that the relevant steps are being taken. In KwaZulu-Natal Department of Education, there has been 6 referrals that were made on the 5th of November of 2020 against 2 senior managers and 4 middle managers. In respect of all disciplinary referrals made, the SIU, as I indicated, we continue to follow up. The SIU has made contact with the department, and we have found that although the department is at various stages of action in the recommendations, none of these matters have been finalized to date. The SIU is continuing to follow up on the outcome of the hearings. Our provincial head from KZN is with us here. I've been informed as latest as last week that they have been in contact with the department, and the department has undertaken that those actions will be taken. In the Itiquini District Municipality in Limpopo, there has been 5 referrals that were made on the 30th of September of 2020 against middle management and senior management officials. 4 of the officials are on suspension pending finalization of the disciplinary process. 1 official resigned before being served with a letter of suspension. So you can see that this trend is across all spheres of government. But the disciplinary process is delayed due to COVID-19 infections within the municipality, but we continue to follow up with the municipality to ensure that the disciplinary process is actioned. In the Mpumalanga Department of Health, 2 referrals were made on the 29th of October 2020 against a middle manager and a senior manager. The head of the department informed the SIU that the referrals have been sent to their lawyers for review and a decision on the way forward. The SIU will follow up on the outcome of these hearings. Our expectations is that the department should consider that evidence that has been referred and take a decision to act on those officials. In the Northwest Department of Education, 2 referrals were made on the 30th of September of 2020 and 13 November against middle manager and an administrative clerk. Proceedings in respect of 1 referral were scheduled to begin on 18 December of 2020, but have been postponed to a date to be announced later. Proceedings in respect of the other referral have not yet started, and the SIU is awaiting a response from the department. We will not just wait for the response. Our officials in Northwest will follow up with the department to ensure that the specific dates been set up and that this matter is actioned. In JB Marks local municipality in the Northwest, 2 referrals were made on October of 2020 against 2 senior managers. We are informed that a law firm was appointed to deal with one of the disciplinary referrals. The SIU consulted with this law firm on the 19th of November 2020, and the second meeting is scheduled in February before the hearing can continue. We have been in contact with the newly appointed MEC, well, newly at the time, of Coxter, who has undertaken to follow up on all these matters. We are pleased that the MEC has indicated that. As I indicated, that all these matters the SIU will continue to follow to ensure that there's consequence management that is implemented. So these are the matters up to now. We indicated the number thereof. Up to 25 officials have been referred in various state institutions for disciplinary process, and we expect that action should be taken. Now, in the process of the investigations, over and above the referrals against the officials, the approach of the investigations is to ensure that wherever there's irregularities in the state institutions, the investigating teams have to ensure that the investigations looks at all levels of accountability, and to ensure that any of the officials that were supposed to execute their functions appropriately and they did not, that action should be taken and referral should be made. And by at all levels, we mean at all levels, including the executive authority level. Now, there's been a number of referrals, only two referrals to date of the for executive actions. These are for those officials or members who are not employees in terms of the Labor Relations Act. 2 referrals of evidence which points to misconduct or irregular on the part of members of the Executive Council, executive mayors and councillors were sent to the relevant authorities to take appropriate action. In the Gauteng Department of Health, 1 referral was made on the 18th of September of 2020 in respect of the former MEC who, according to the SIU investigations, failed to fulfill his obligations to comply with the Constitution with his general oversight responsibilities in respect of the department, and that contributed to the department failing to comply with the prescripts of the Constitution and thereby irregularities against the Public Finance Management Act. As it has well been reported, the MEC was discharged, and on the 23rd of October 2020, the MEC filed an urgent application to the High Court of Gauteng under the case number 555372 of 2020 to review and set aside the SIU findings. The SIU opposed the application. The matter was set down for hearing on the 21st of January 2021 before a full bench of the High Court, and the matter was heard, and on the same day the judgment was reserved. So this, we will not go into details on that matter and allow the Honourable Court to return the judgment. In the JB Max local municipality, 1 referral was made on the 12th of November 2020 for action to be taken against the office bearer in respect of the awarding of a donation to an entity. The newly appointed MEC, as I indicated earlier on, is following up on this matter and will update the SIU on the outcome. Now, the next paragraph that I deal with, those were the referrals against the officials and referrals against the executive authority and office bearers. We now deal with the rent value of cash and or assets to be recovered, and that those are recovered in other means other than civil proceedings that are laid at the special tribunal. The SIU has identified potential cash and assets to be recovered from service providers to the value of 260.6 million in 5 provinces. This is the rent value in cash or assets that is potentially recoverable. I need to just indicate that those measures that I said, these are the recoveries of measures other than the civil proceedings in the special tribunal. It often happens that when the investigations is conducted and the findings are made and we confront the service providers or anyone who would be liable, then the SIU is confronted by the service providers acknowledging the debt or acknowledging the liability. In that instance, the SIU then, in conjunction with the state institution concerned, would then look at this offer by the service providers and ensure that it is quantified appropriately. It is the money that is due and payable based on the losses that the state institution suffered. And based on that, if the state institution is satisfied, we would then enter into what is called an acknowledgement of debt. So the acknowledgement of debt documents are signed and the debtor agrees to repay the money on a lump sum or repays the money on monthly installment until the debt is fully paid. This is monitored to ensure that the money is fully paid. As I indicated, the other means of ensuring that we save the monies from being paid out, the SIU also makes recommendations when the irregularities are found to withhold payments to service providers, usually where irregularities have been uncovered by the investigations pending the civil litigations, either in the special tribunal or in the High Court. As I indicated, the acknowledgement of debt is accepted in conjunction with the state institution concerned to ensure that the accurate amount is due and is paid back. It is, however, important to note that This acknowledgement of debt may be entered into and be paid, but this does not absolve the debtor of any criminal prosecution should there be any evidence pointing to criminal action on their part. I think it's very important to understand that part. Now in various state institutions, there has been this kind of instances where we have entered into acknowledgement of debts, and where we have advised the state institutions to not pay based on the irregularities that were found. In the Gauteng Department of Health, SIU recommended that the department withhold payments to further 5 service providers to the value of 116 million. The department has confirmed that no further payments were made pending the finalization of the SIU investigations and the civil proceedings. So by doing so, we ensure that when ultimately the civil proceedings are completed and there's been rulings made for monies to be recovered or forfeited, then we still do not lose money from the state institutions. In the Gauteng Department of Health, I've already mentioned, and this is the part that related to the special tribunal of the 26 million that was forfeited. There has been an AOD in the Gauteng Department of Health that was signed to the value of 247,000. The service provider was contracted to supply surgical masks, and the value of the contract is 7.2 million. The AOD, this acknowledgement of debt, was signed because of an overpayment in respect of the VAT that was made in one invoice that was submitted. In KZN, Department of Education, 3 acknowledgement of debts were signed to the value of 1.2 million for the under-delivery of goods supplied and for overcharging the department for VAT. 3 service providers were contracted to supply PPE with a cumulative contract of 15.1 million. And one acknowledgement of debt was also signed to the value of 176,000, which has been repaid monthly in installments. To date, 44,000 has been paid. The other 2 acknowledgement of debts totaling more than 1 million have been repaid in full. In KZN Department of Social Development, a recommendation was made to withhold payment to one service provider to the value of more than 2 million. The department has confirmed that no further payments will be made pending the conclusion of the litigation process that the SIU has initiated. Still in the KZN, Department of Social Development, 1 acknowledgement of debt was signed to the value of 276,000 for charging the department VAT while they were not registered as VAT vendors. The service provider was contracted to supply PPE, and the value of the 2 contracts was just over 2.5 million. In Mpumalanga, 1 acknowledgement of debt was signed to the value of 76,000 because the service provider had inflated price of the PPE that was procured. This acknowledgement of debt was signed based on the fact that the investigation revealed that there was a difference between what was supposed to be charged and what the supplier actually charged. The debtor is making monthly repayments. So far, 15,000 has been paid. Still in Mpumalanga, 2 further acknowledgement of debts were entered into in the Department of Health to the value of 150,800 rands, based on the fact that the investigation revealed that the service providers inflated prices of stationery that was procured with the PPE. The acknowledgement of debts was for the difference that they were supposed to have charged and the money that was actually charged. Both these acknowledgement of debts have been repaid in full. So you can see that whenever the service providers are approached with any wrongdoing, some of them do acknowledge debt, and they do pay as required. But it's, again, to repeat, it's very important to note that the acknowledgement of debt do not absolve the service providers of any other action that should be taken. In the Department of Health in the Northwest, 2 acknowledgement of debts were signed to the value of 19,592 based on the fact that the investigation revealed that the service providers were paid VAT by the department but were not registered as VAT vendors. Both this acknowledgement of debts have been repaid in full. And I need to just indicate that once the acknowledgement of debts are paid, the arrangement are paid into an account, trust account, in many instances held by SIU, and those amounts are then further transferred back to the state institutions. In the Western Cape, the Matsikama local municipality, a recommendation was made to withhold payment to one service provider to the value of 80,000 rand. The department has confirmed that no payments will be made pending the finalization of the SIU investigation and the related civil proceedings. Now, these are the measures that we take to ensure that in between the investigations where there are irregularities and there are instances where we can save and protect the money from disappearing, that we enter into those arrangements or advise the department not to pay further, pending due process, pending the civil litigations. Now I move over to the other outcome that the SIU reaches. And as I read to you when I read the mandate of the Special Investigating Unit, is that as we investigate and we find that there's evidence pointing to criminal action, by law we are expected to refer that evidence to the National Prosecuting Authority. To date, SIU has made 38 referrals to the National Prosecuting Authority in respect of evidence of criminal prosecution. The referrals include allegations of fraud, corruption, and the financial misconduct relating to Public Finance Management Act and the Municipal Finance Management Act. The NPA referrals are from the investigations in the following institutions. In the Eastern Cape Department of Health, there's been two referrals that were made on the 12th of November against 2 senior managers to be charged of the offense of corruption. A criminal case number 0809-2020 is under investigation by the Hawks, and the SIU is collaborating with the NPA and the Hawks in this regard. The NPA prosecutor has been assigned to guide this matter. In the OR Tambo District Municipality, still in the Eastern Cape, 3 referrals were made on the 13th of November 2020 against 2 senior managers and a director of an entity. The offense in that regard is identified as fraud and the contravention of Municipal Finance Management Act. A criminal case is already under investigation by the Hawks under case number 64 of July of 2020. The Hawks arrested a director of the service provider and one of the senior managers. The criminal case was remanded until the 15th of February of 2021, and again an NPA prosecutor is assigned to this matter. In the Free State Provincial Treasury, 6 referrals were made in respect of the procurement processes on the 30th of November of 2020 and 12th November of 2020 against a senior manager and the CEO of an entity and the entity itself. The offense is identified as fraud. Criminal cases were registered at Park Road Police Station and are currently being investigated by the Hawks under case number 933, November of 2020, and case number 665, October of 2020. Again, we are pleased that a prosecutor has been assigned to the matters and are currently consulting the SIU investigator. In the Gauteng Department of Health, 2 referrals were made on the 22nd of September 2020 and 25, 2020 against the senior manager. The offense is financial misconduct in terms of Section 86 of the Public Finance Management Act. A criminal case was opened with reference to Johannesburg, case number 484, December of 2020. The matters are under investigations by the South African Police Service. Further, in Gauteng Department of Health, further 2 referrals were made against an entity and the director of that entity. The offense is fraud, A criminal case was opened with reference to Johannesburg case number 360, December 2020. The matters are also under investigation by the South African Police Service. In KZN, one referral was made on the 8th of October of 2020 against the senior manager. The offense is financial misconduct. A prosecutor, again, we are pleased, has since been assigned and been briefed by the Special Investigating Unit. In KZN, again, in the Department of Education, 9 referrals were made on the 15th of October 2020 and 20 October 2020. And further on the 27th of October 2020 against 3 entities, the directors and their managers. The offense identified is fraud, alternatively forgery and uttering. A prosecutor has since been assigned and the SIU has met with the NPA and the Hawks for a briefing on this matter. The SIU is providing ongoing support to the prosecuting team. In the Itiquini District Municipality, this is in Limpopo, 2 referrals were made on the 30th of September of 2020 against 2 middle managers. The offense identified by the evidence there is the offense of fraud and financial misconduct. The NPA has assigned a prosecutor and a criminal case was opened under case number 33 July of 2020. At the National Department, in the matter of the Bait Bridge, 7 referrals were made on the 28th of September of 2020 against 2 entities, their directors and the project managers. The offense is fraud, and we are pleased again that the NPA has assigned a prosecutor in this matter so that it's speeded up. In the Northwest, in the Ratlow local municipality, 1 referral was made on the 8th of October 2020 against the senior manager. The offense is financial misconduct, and the matter was referred back to SIU to finalize few queries. We have since finalized those queries, and the documents were sent back on the 3rd of February of 2021. Still in the Northwest, in JB Marks municipality, 1 referral was made on October the 14th of 2020 against the senior manager. The offense is financial misconduct. The matter is still under review by the NPA. In the Western Cape, Department of Environmental, Forestry and Fisheries, 2 referrals were made on the 8th of October of 2020 against an entity and the director. The offense is fraud, alternatively forging and uttering. A criminal case was opened in Pretoria at the Central under case number 26 November of 2020. This matter is the Western Cape matter, but we are informed that the procurement was done centrally in Pretoria, hence the case was opened in Pretoria. Right, and now those are the referrals to date to the NPA based on the legislative injunction that we have, that when we pick up evidence pointing to criminality, we refer matters to the NPA. And we are pleased that the prosecutors have been assigned to these matters to ensure that they receive appropriate attention and the envisaged prosecution results. Now, there has been a matter relating to the temporary employment relief scheme under the Unemployment Insurance Fund that we also investigated during this period. The team looked at this matter, these matters, because initially I indicated to you that where we find that some matters really do not fall within the scope of the proclamation, we do then, firstly, we consider seconding employees or members of SIU to the department, and then we process the proclamation to ensure that these matters are investigated. This is one such instance. A secondment agreement was entered into between the Department of Employment, Labour and the SIU to assist the department with investigations. The secondment agreement, during this secondment investigations, we worked closely with the SAPS and the Hawks. A total of 75 criminal cases have been opened and are currently under investigation. And the secondment team conducted a red flag analysis on the TERS, which is the Temporary Employment Relief Scheme, data and found the following. A total of 6,140 government officials were identified and were claiming from UIF to the value of over 41 million, making the use of 3,959 bank accounts. Of the 3,959 bank accounts identified, a total of 581 bank accounts were associated with multiple beneficiaries. 79 exceptions were identified relating to members of the South African National Defence Force. A total of 59 SANDF members received payments to the value of 327,000 rands. The seconded team also looked into payments into inmates at the correctional services as well as payment to deceased individuals. As I indicated, the SIU has processed a proclamation to fully investigate these UIF matters. But we are pleased that these matters have also received attention by the Auditor General, and the Auditor General has submitted a report on these matters. But as I indicated, we will then, once the proclamation is processed, ensure that a full-scale investigation is done. I turn now to deal with one aspect relating to what is the people that are called domestic, prominent, or influential persons and their immediate family. During the allegations that we received, some of the allegations were saying certain people received contracts because they were associated with certain prominent people. On our investigations, and the details are in the report, we have found that we have looked and we requested our legal team to really assess and check the legal provisions in this regard. So as I indicated, there was a general public outcry about the involvement of domestic, prominent, influential persons as defined in the Financial Intelligence Center Act and their immediate family as defined in that FICA, benefiting from the PPE procurement by the state institutions. Now, the legal team and we found, and this is what we are indicating, currently such involvement does not necessarily render the awarding of contracts to such people or entities that they are involved in unlawful, and such contract must be scrutinized for compliance with the principles of the Public Finance Management Act or Municipal Finance Management Act or the Section 217 of the Constitution. It is important to note that the need exists for considering additional safeguards for situations where state institutions contract with persons in these categories. FICA currently regulates the conclusion of contracts between accountable institutions and domestic, prominent, influential persons and their immediate family. But the schedule listing accountable institutions does not include state institutions such as national, provincial, or municipal entities, or even state-owned entities. In addition, FICA only envisages remedial action through administrative actions. FICA also does not create a statutory offense for its provisions if its provisions are not complied with. In this regard, it is the SIU's recommendation that legislative amendments be considered to provide for safeguards when state institutions are to contract with domestic, prominent, influential persons and their immediate family, as well as entities in which they have interest and are beneficial owners thereof. All state institutions should be bound by such safeguards. It is not suggested that the mere fact that someone falls in this category would render the contract unlawful, but it should be a prerequisite of all supply chain management processes that a disclosure must be made that a potential service provider falls within the category set out above. We have included in the statement the summary of outcomes. So without really wasting time, I'm going to read out the summary as as is contained in the statement that we have released. This is a summary of the outcomes that we have now presented, and they are as in the report as at the 25th of November, but we have also factored in the developments of yesterday's judgment. So as we sit the summary of outcome, the rand value of potential cash and or assets to be recovered, the value thereof is now sitting at 160.6 million. This are the matters that I've referred to in the report that indicates further recoveries that SIU will still make. Now the rand value of actual cash on assets recovered, as on the 4th of February, the value of the actual cash recovered and cash saved is 127.2 million. As I indicated, the number of referrals made for disciplinary actions against officials is 25, and the number of referrals made against executive or administrative action is 2. The number of referrals made to the relevant prosecuting authorities is 38, and the rand value of matters in the special tribunal to date, factoring in the cases that were enrolled after the 25th of November. To date, we've got 15 matters valuing the contract value of 365 million. In conclusion, while the investigation is still underway and we continue to submit progress reports to the President as required, we continue to execute on the outcomes of the investigations and follow up on the referrals to ensure that there is consequence management. We are focusing on ensuring that there is accountability at all levels of the state administration, including executive authority accountability. Our collaboration with other law enforcement agencies in the Fusion Center has proved very valuable. The NPA has provided prosecutors to guide criminal investigations and will prioritize the consideration of these matters referred to. As I indicated when we started, the Special Tribunal has proved to be of critical importance in the speed up of civil litigation instituted by the SIU. We will take all steps necessary to ensure that the losses suffered by the state due to irregularities, corruption, and maladministration are recovered and paid back to the state. And the SIU will present to the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services. The SIU will also present to the Select Committee on Public Accounts and other relevant parliamentary committees. It is worth emphasizing that the SIU investigations have revealed a flagrant and wanton disregard of the applicable law, policies, and procedures. My observation is that the flagrant and wanton disregard is underpinned by insatiable pursuit of self-enrichment, and that cannot go unpunished. We therefore have to ensure that the responsible officials, private sector parties identified, should be harshly punished, and a clear message should be sent out to the would-be maladministrators and the corrupt that action will be taken against them. It is really disheartening to see state officials in all spheres of government who have been called to serve the people of South Africa being implicated in unlawful and illegal activities in procurement processes that are meant to benefit the public, with corrupt intent to unduly benefit themselves and their friends and or relatives to prejudice the state and the public. If corruption is not tackled by all in society, it has the potential to weaken the state's capacity to deliver basic services. I appeal to all public servants and those in positions of power and responsibility to serve the people of South Africa with integrity and pride. The SIU will continue to pursue those officials who resign in the face of investigations or in the face of disciplinary actions by freezing their pensions and instituting civil litigations to recover the monies due to the state and to cover any damages that they may have caused to the state institutions. and where there is evidence pointing to any act of criminality on their part, they will also be pursued through criminal investigation and prosecution. At this stage, we will also want to acknowledge the work of the Health Sector Anti-Corruption Forum, which was launched by the President in October of 2019 as the outcome of the Presidential Health Summit. Its collaboration with law enforcement agencies has ensured that corruption, maladministration, and malpractices in the health sector, including the COVID-19 corruption cases, are reported, investigated, and prosecuted. This forum is constituted by state officials, health sector regulators, the Council for Medical Scheme, Board of Healthcare Funders, civil society organizations such as Corruption Watch, Section 27, and other health sector organizations. This forum is coordinated by the Special Investigating Unit. I also want to acknowledge the hard work of the members of the Special Investigating Unit. They really ensured that hard work is put into these investigations to ensure that we reach the outcomes that we are presenting to the public today. The investigations are ongoing, and we are preparing to present the next interim report to the President, which will be later in February. The exact date will be determined. I think by the end of this week, we should determine where in October are we submitting this interim report to the President. And we will then continue to submit the progress reports as requested. I need to just state it's not in the statement, but as we submit the report, we are envisaging that the matters that we have been reported up to now, we are envisaging that we will wrap up this investigation in the next 6 months from all the provinces. I've conferred with various of my provincial heads, and the status of the investigations are such that this investigation of the matters that we have on hand will be wrapped up in the next 6 months to ensure that we have certainty of and conclusion on this investigations, and the special tribunal should go on with the recoveries. The new matters, as we reported, continue to come in, and we can't close out on those new matters. But those matters will then be handled as and when they are reported. This is the end of my report. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Advocate Mutibi. People would have noticed that we took a lot of time putting together this statement because we needed to put as much information in the statement as possible, and that is why it has taken so many pages in the statement. And I hope that people have got the information that they need. We have come to a point where we're going to have engagements, and we have requested that the media, especially those that are not here, to be asking questions through the WhatsApp page. And I'm informed by Irene here that there are questions already. Irene, can you take us while you take water? Is there something you want to say?
The report has been posted.
Yes, the report has been posted. I've confirmed that. Everybody has got the statement and they've got the report.
Thank you.
As we speak.
Thank you.
Therefore, we are going to start having the questions, and the questions will be answered by people that the head of the unit will ask to answer, and everybody will be expected to come here on the podium when they do the answering. Okay, let's start. Irene?
Thanks, Chair. I have received 5 questions from the media. The first 2 questions are from Sipho Mabena from The Citizen. Sipo is asking, on the referral made against the spokesperson of the President on 10 November 2020, you mentioned that the SIU was informed that the Office of the President was taking relevant steps. What steps exactly are being taken? If you could take the public into your confidence. Details, please. The second question, from what you have uncovered thus far, would you say South Africa's effort to deal with corruption and bring the guilt to book are bearing any fruits? We are still above 40 in the Global Corruption Index. The next question is from Karima Brown from ENCA. She's asking, can you provide clarity if your investigation has been tasked to investigate PPE procurement corruption in the SAPS? If yes, please elaborate. If not, why not? Who to your knowledge is investigating procurement of PPE irregularities in the SAPS? That's it for now, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We have got those two questions from Sipo. Who is going to be taking them? You will take them. You have got to come here because they've removed the mics from there. Is that SABC mic? Okay.
Can I go on? Okay, thanks. On Sipo's question from the citizen, what steps are being taken? As I indicated, that we have referred this matter to the presidency. In particular, the acting Director General of the presidency has acknowledged the receipt, and we continue to interact with the Director General. The information that has been relayed to SIU is that the presidency is taking steps. So the steps that are being taken is to ensure that the disciplinary action receives attention. As I speak currently, I do not have the details of where that action is, but we have been assured that the relevant action will be taken based on that referral. Are the action based on the investigation that we have conducted? The question raised again by Sipo is that are the efforts bearing fruit? Our view is that we still, as a country, have a lot to do. But this is a wider question now, and I assume that you are referring to the Corruption Perception Index that has been issued recently. It's really not showing a significant improvement on South Africa, and it's really an indictment on all of us in government, civil society, business. Remember, this is a societal responsibility. Fighting corruption is everyone's responsibility. So our view is that the actions that we are taking, firstly, to ensure that the allegations, when they are reported, they receive appropriate attention, investigations are conducted timely, effectively, and the outcomes are reached, as we were reporting now, and ensure that those outcomes are attended to. Consequence management is meted out, so that punishment is also meted out. This will have the effect of ensuring that there is deterrence, and that those would be corrupt and those would be maladministrators. A clear message is sent, and we are sure that we will see the benefits of that. But of course, the fight against corruption has got various aspects in it. These are mainly the reactive parts of the fight against corruption, where you receive allegations and you report and you prosecute and you recover the monies lost. There is a big section in the fight against corruption which has now been encapsulated in the national anti-corruption strategy which has been approved by Cabinet, which relates to the prevention part of the fight against corruption. But without going into detail on the question, we are of the view that there's still a lot that needs to be done in ensuring that the outcomes are acted upon. But we are seeing significant improvement in those actions being taken. If we continue on that trajectory of showing that those who are in the wrong, public or private, we take action and ensure that actions are taken, punishment is meted out, we are certain that we will see the bearing of fruits of those activities. On Karima's question, whether we are investigating in the SAPS, I'm informed by my colleagues that there is an aspect of the SAPS allegations that have been received by our colleagues in the Free State. Those allegations have got bearing at a national, but the investigation is still ongoing. We have not covered them in here on this report simply because they have not been finalized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate. There are journalists that are in the House that we are going to now give an opportunity to ask questions. You know the drill. Let's follow that line. One from Mr. Sturman, Bali, and you.
It's working. Sipo Sturman from SABC TV News. You mentioned that there is evidence of political pressure in the issuing of these PPE, in the procurement of PPEs. Can you just give some detail as to how you arrived at that, and at what level are you saying this? Are you talking provincially, at nationally? And when you say evidence of political pressure, would that mean the political appointees, such as a minister or an MEC of some sort? So what exactly do you mean by that? You also mentioned that 13 billion of the 30 billion rands that are spent on PPEs is under investigation. I know you did a bit of a breakdown, but really, who are the biggest sinners here? Like, if you can just point us, who are the biggest sinners who have been doing the most with the public funds and just spending it recklessly and enriching themselves? Thank you.
Okay.
Mbali Tetani from Newsroom Africa. I just want to find out, in your report, you also refer to the LEDLA contract. You say that at least 39 bank accounts, or rather money was sent through to 39 bank accounts. If you can just share with us, I don't know if you can, where did this money go to, in whose bank accounts? Are there any officials in which you picked up on or who received money from the LEDLA contract? And when it comes to people resigning, do we have a clear number as to how many officials actually resigned from their positions who are involved in this PPE corruption? And also, has there been any criminal charges laid against those who have been involved in some of this PPE corruption?
Okay, I'll take this one. Thank you so much. It's Govin Whittles here from ENCA. Thank you so much. Just on the question of LEDLA in the media statement you sent out yesterday, you mentioned that there was money laundering once the money was quickly paid out into different accounts and then dispersed to other companies. Could you just give us an indication of what exactly happened there? What was the money laundering? Then on LEDLA, you have said, sir, in your statement that so far the SIU has recovered 26 million of the 39 million that was already paid to LEDLA. And the 100 million wasn't paid because there was an interdict placed on that. The clarity question is then, is that all the money that will be recovered by the SIU from LEDLA? What about the missing, between the 39 and the 26? What happens to that? Do you hope to recover that, or are you able to recover that? Then I'd like to ask, you've mentioned various findings of fronting, splitting of bids, names being given of companies ahead of the supply chain management process. Has the SIU found any evidence of syndicates infiltrating this opportunity and essentially taking over the contracts? And then you've mentioned that 6,141 government officials claimed from UIF, the TERS scheme. Could you clarify, are those government employees who are still employed right now who claimed from that money? And then lastly, did the SIU find any evidence of government officials or members of the executives that were bribed in order for companies to receive contracts? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes? Give that mic to him.
Okay, thank you. I'm Fanuel Shuma from SABC Radio News. From your presentation, it sounds like a massive investigation going on and still going on. But my question is, it's not for the first time that the SIU has conducted such a massive investigation relating to corruption. We have seen you going to municipalities, government departments, but apparently when these matters get to courts, it's a different story. I mean, I've been following such stories for the past many years that I've been in this job, but I struggle to remember any case where an official of municipality or government department was convicted on those cases that you conducted. What is the problem? Are you sure that the courts are going to do their job and will see people behind bars?
Thank you. That is all for people inside. Okay. Then we will respond. Thank you. Before you come, let them do the.
No, thanks for those questions. On the latter matter, in whose bank accounts did the money flow to? If you read the judgment, Mbali, that was handed down yesterday, there is a clear, it's actually almost dramatic. There is a clear flow of funds to companies and to some individuals. And the court, remember, gave them the opportunity to come back, what's called Rule Nisi, come back and satisfy the court that those monies were acquired lawfully. And some were able to satisfy the courts that the money was acquired lawfully, but a big number of about more than 20 or so, they couldn't. And that showed that they acquired the money irregularly. And in the main, those were companies. Some of them whom did not even provide services. In the judgment, you will see that in one instance, one invoice was even issued to Royal Bata, which effectively means that they still had an impression that Royal Bata was the one that was providing services, when Royal Bata had supposedly withdrawn and given the, brought letter and so on. But please read the judgment. But to your question, we found that this monies flowed to, about 39 or so companies, and it flowed so hastily, as I said. So hastily, so quickly, it was so clear that there was an intent to make sure that the money is dissipated. The money disappears into various accounts. We have not found evidence, and our legal team can confirm, and we have not found evidence that the money has flown to officials, to government officials, right? The investigation is still ongoing on the criminal side, and the investigation is still digging deep on that front. So the flow of money was such that, and again, this now leads me to the money laundering question that was asked by is it Wiggle, Gavin Wiggle. So Mbali, that's the response to your question. We didn't find officials to whom the money flowed to, but the investigation, as ongoing as it is, we will continue together with the Hawks and guided by prosecutor. Let's leave that part to unfold. We'll see what the finding is. Now, the money laundering part, you'll see if you read the judgment, it's actually so clear, that in one company, and I don't have the judgment with me, but in one company, the money was, paid in and taken out, sort of immediately on the same day, and it's not clear, what became of the money. So, of course, money laundering is a crime. So we'll have to ensure that now when this is reported on the criminal side now, investigations has to be done appropriately to ensure that that part, meets with the money laundering requirements of the criminal part of the investigation. The latter part, the difference between, yes, you're right, we reported that the 100 million was not paid because the contract was cancelled, right? So this was a 139 million contract. Of the 39, 26 has been forfeited to the state, right? And then we are left with 13, right? Remember, if you read the judgment, there's some where the freezing was released because the court found that they had, received the money appropriately, right? So that gap, we just need to quantify. It could be falling in that category, where the monies have been released due to a finding being made by the court that they might have, performed the services or whatever the case may be. But this is how I can just explain the gap. Did you found members of the executive that were bribed? No, we have not found evidence of members of the executive that have been bribed to date. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to find any, but let's leave that to the investigation that is still ongoing. Municipalities and departments. You're right that SIU has been in this business of investigating maladministration, malpractice, malfeasance, and corruption for a while. If I count back, in fact, it's almost 25 years now that SIU has been in existence and doing exactly that. If you look at our presentations that we have presented a formidable presentation to the portfolio committee on cooperative on the local government. That evidence shows that we have conducted investigations into almost all the provinces, almost all the municipalities, and there has been significant results being achieved. Now, specifically on your question around the convictions in the courts, and this is the criminal side of things now. We are of the view, and there's been few cases where there has been convictions. I just don't have the facts with me now, but if you need those, you can contact us. We can sit down with you and show you. But of course, as I indicated, that our view is to ensure that we lift up the bar in ensuring that all the outcomes are acted upon, right? There is quite a number of referrals that we have made for officials to be held accountable for disciplinary action, and we are not satisfied that those actions are acted upon effectively or all of them. Similar to the referrals for prosecution, and we are also ensuring that we lift the bar in terms of the civil litigation recoveries. So your question is accurate, that your observation is accurate, that we really need to ensure that when we put together the evidentiary material that we submit to the NPA, it should be a material that is sufficient enough to assist NPA to come to a finding. But of course, NPA has got the prerogative as the custodians of criminal prosecution to apply their minds and order further investigations when necessary. But yes, we still need to ensure that that space receives more attention. The political pressure question. Sorry. I noted it. The instances of political pressure, and remember, these were the observations based on the evidence, right? It was mostly in provinces, and the evidence that we collected, particularly in the Gauteng province, and we found some evidence in the Eastern Cape province, but we are really not at liberty now, because these cases are pending, to go into details with that. And at an appropriate time, we will include it either in the following reports. Thank you.
Sorry, my follow-up question was from the investigation. You mentioned that about 13 million is under investigation. And I had asked that who has been doing the most with the public funds? Who are the biggest sinners? If you can just highlight to us, that was one of my questions. Thank you.
Look, at the moment, when we quantify, and in fact, our national head of investigations is here, I've been indicating to them that when we checked, the big ticket matters up to now has been the one that we have identified in Gauteng, which is the 139 million from the province. We've also identified in the national the Bait Bridge, which is in the region of about 40 million. And in other provinces, you have heard that we have got in the Eastern Cape, in the Department of Education, and perhaps the provincial head of Eastern Cape can just indicate the amounts in that province. In KZN, there's also amounts that we have mentioned, but the big spenders we've seen now in Gauteng at the national level, and some middle big spenders in other provinces. And as I said, there's quite a significant amount in the Eastern Cape, and perhaps you can share with the public just significant amounts in that province. Thanks. You can bring your computer.
Good afternoon. From the Eastern Cape, these are just matters that we received as of the 26th of November 2020. We received allegations from different departments, and as I can see the figures, the biggest culprits in terms of the allegations will be the provincial departments. From the Department of Labour, we received 2 allegations, and the contract value was only 365,000. From the Eastern Cape SASSA, it was 45 million, 2 matters that we received. From the Amatola Water Board, we received 1 allegation, but involving 36 contracts to the value of 53.7 million. And the Department of Education, we are investigating 258 contracts to the value of 1.2 billion. The Department of Health, it's 174 matters to the value of 628 million. The Department of the Department of Human Settlements, we received one allegation involving 4 matters to the value of 125 million rand. Then the Department of Public Works in the Eastern Cape, we received a number of allegations, but they involve 83 contracts to the value of 680 million rand. And then Nelson Mandela Municipality, the Metropolitan Municipality, we received a number of allegations, and we are looking at 58 contracts to the value of 168 million rand. And then the OR Tambo matter that was already spoken to by the head. It's one matter that we have received as at November to the value of 4.8 million rand. The total in the Eastern Cape, we are looking at 619 contracts to the value of 2.9 billion. This is the cases that we received then. This number has increased because we received new matters. Thank you.
Hi. Good day. Thank you for attending. And the question relates to who are the biggest spenders, not necessarily who are the biggest culprits, so to speak. So the biggest spenders that we find are provincial departments, and we find the Department of Education leading in this respect, where we see 496 million rand that has a spend in just with the Department of Education. We then look at the DSDs. With the Department of Social Development, we are looking at a combined figure there of 43 million that we are looking at. The Office of the Premier, we don't have a total figure on it, but it's one of the matters that we found no merit to the investigation. And that's one of the matters that we've closed out. Then there was the Itiquini Municipality, which involves 53 million. So we see a spread along the provincial departments and the municipalities. But what we are also noting, and we've noticed one with the Department of Education where a contract was given to us to look at. We looked at the provincial department that was over 1.1 billion rand. But we established that this was not done provincially. It was actually done nationally, and that's being now catered for under the national investigations in the water, I forget the name of the investigation, Leonard, the national water investigations that are being done. So that's where it's actually being catered for. But generally, that's the spread of the investigations. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm here to deal with one of the questions which was asked regarding the 6,140 government officials who received the TERS from UIF. With regard to that investigation, we've done that investigation under the secondment. And under the secondment, meaning that our members were seconded to the Department of Labor, where they did the investigation. Remember, the process there was that the company must get the official and apply to UIF so that they can get money and pay the official. So out of that information, we managed to get the information and ran the data against the PESAL so that we can able to identify are there any official that were identified out of that process. That's why we managed to identify 6,140 officials. But however, because of the secondment, under the secondment, you can only do the powers within the department, but you don't have the powers for SIU to be able to investigate further. So what happened is that we have applied for a proclamation so that we can deal with this matter, go through the financial analysis to be able to see the funds as they paid, to whom did they go, did this official really benefit them out of this process? Because in some instances we found that some of the companies went around and obtained ID numbers and names of people and applied. So we need to verify that. For us to do that, we are waiting for a proclamation to be issued so that we can able to see what exactly happened in that process. Thank you.
Thank you. We have been here for 2 hours now. I think it's about time that we finish the press conference. I just want to check with Irene if there is anyone on your side. Last two, and then we close. Oh, and then there's one from inside, and that will be the end, because we can spend the whole day here if we are not careful. Let's hear from you, Irene.
Thanks, Chair. I have two follow-up questions. One question is from Sipho Mabena from The Citizen. He's asking, in terms of referrals of internal disciplinary action as well as criminal prosecutions against those implicated, is the SIU empowered to act if no action is taken, or how do you ensure consequence management? Another follow-up question is from Karima Brown. She's asking, is your investigation into SAP's PPE irregularities confined to the Free State? Can you indicate if you are investigating alleged irregularities against the head of SAP's Crime Intelligence Head, Lieutenant General Peter Jacobs, who is currently suspended for using the slush fund for acquiring PPEs? That's it for now.
Okay. And then Govern. Where's the mic? Yeah. And that will be the last one.
Thank you. It's Govern again from ENCA. I'd just like to get a comment on the PPE procurement process that was investigated by the SIU, and how the level of corruption that you've encountered in that process stacks up to other processes that you've investigated before. Are you seeing this is the worst kind of attack on a process to loot the money? And then secondly, the judgment has been reserved in the case of the former MEC in Gauteng after he went to review the finding that he failed to observe his obligation to the Constitution and oversight. How confident are you that the SIU's investigation won't be set aside? Thank you.
Yes, I think that was the last question. If we can just respond to it. The SAPS one. And
okay. Sipho from Citizen, what is it that SIU can do when we have referred the disciplinary matters and the criminal matters and there are no actions? Currently, in the legislation of SIU, there's really no legislative action that SIU can take, but there's an administrative or even legal process that SIU can take. Firstly, SIU can probably approach the courts to ask for an action compelling the state institutions to take disciplinary actions against the institutions, but we haven't really reached that stage because we have been engaging and following up with the state institutions. We have found that there is willingness to take action. So as we interact with the accounting officers and accounting authorities, where we follow up on the matters that we have referred, we often find that the state institutions are showing willingness to act. So there hasn't been any need for us to institute any compelling processes. On the criminal prosecutions, as I indicated, the the NPA is the final final decision maker on the on the criminal prosecutions. Again, similarly, hypothetically, if we are not satisfied that a decision has been made not to prosecute, we've got there's that latitude, that avenue where we can engage with the NPA to understand why the specific prosecution has not followed, and engage with them. If it's a question of further evidence that needed to be acquired or gathered, we can then, working with the Hawks, probably go and ensure that evidence is gathered to ensure that NPA reaches the decision that we envisage to prosecute. But similarly, and this is something that we have really not intended to do, that we could enter into any legal processes in terms of ensuring that there's prosecution. There's a similar willingness at the moment. We have seen that the NPA is really willing to prosecute. So there is absolutely no need to go into any further processes of dealing with the matters. I don't want to go into the history. We know that there's been a history of matters not being prosecuted, but that has changed. It is our view, and this is based on the interaction that we have had with NPA, the memorandum of understanding that we have completed with them. We are seeing action that is really satisfactory. On the SAPS investigation, Karima, I'm informed by the head of the investigations that so far the allegations that we are investigating are not related to the persons that you have mentioned, but I don't really want to be conclusive at this stage. If need be, we can interact directly, Mr. Khanyaho, with Karima Brown to ensure that we just indicate to her the kind of allegations that have been received by our Bloemfontein or Free State team and the ones that we are investigating, so that we clarify to her what is it that we are looking into. Kevin Wiggle, in terms of the confidence that SIU has on its case, yes, we are confident that we have put out a case. I mean, like any other litigant, I'm sure the other party, if you ask them, they will also say, they are confident that they've put up, a formidable case. So we are satisfied that we have looked into the legal requirements. We are satisfied that our case was presented appropriately. And as I said, we respect the court process. We are waiting for the judgment to be delivered. Thank you. Oh, right. So sorry, I missed that point. The level of corruption. Look, I think it's really clear to us when we do the assessment, and that question comes at the right time with our internal strategy, where we are already even engaging in analytics, trend analysis. So this PPE maladministration and corruption, I would like to say the scale of it really tops some of those that we have done before. But if you look in the SOEs and some of the departments, there are those matters on the value and scale that also almost seeks to compare, but the PPE from our trend analysis has been really a situation unprecedented. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Like I said, that was the last question. We have come to basically the end of the press conference, just for us to say that anyone who has got allegations and evidence, please bring them to the SIU, because our investigations are allegation-based and our outcomes are evidence-based. Therefore, it is important that people work with us and make sure that we fight together against these people who are making us all look bad because of corruption. With those words, I would like to thank each and every one of you, and thank you very much for attending. Thank you. There you go. You know they're good.